All right, welcome to another episode of Justice for Y'all. I am Paul Painter. Here with me, as always, Andrew Bowen and Stephen Morrison. Guys, how's it going?
Going good.
Guys, I have a question.
What you got?
Oxford comma, yes or no?
Yes.
There's no question.
It's a
Oxford,
you're
comma,
right.
100%.
hard yes.
Do we assume everybody is okay with what the Oxford comma is? Do we need to explain that?
Listen, I think if somebody's listening to our podcast, they know what the Oxford comma is.
I would hope so.
I feel like if you don't know what the Oxford comma is, this just probably, you've lost interest by now.
probably-
Have you met any of my friends?
Well, have you
that's-
met any of my family?
Andrew, that's cute. You think you have friends.
Actually, answer. Yeah, now that Paul says that, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Right.
We are your friends, Andrew.
I think we should explain the Oxford comma.
So
All right.
It's also known as the cereal comma, but it's not like grains in the Midwest, but like cereal, like in serial killer. It is the comma before the last conjunction of the sentence. So, the best example I can think of is, I had, orange juice, eggs, and toast, or I had eggs, orange juice, and toast. With the Oxford comma, everybody knows that you had eggs, comma, orange juice, comma, and toast. You did not have eggs, comma, orange juice, and toast. You did not pour orange juice onto your toast and then eat it.
Correct.
I rest my case.
And no one would actually believe that you poured orange juice on your toast. So in your example, people are like, well, what's the big deal?
Right.
But where it really comes up is when you're drafting legal documents, contracts, and you have the last two items in the list not separated by a comma, there can be a question whether you have a list of three things and then
Yes.
and then two things that are combined, or whether you have a list of five things.
Right. We are in an age and in a culture of the written word. And so if you're going to do it, you do it right. That's with the Oxford comma.
Right. And it's clearer because here's an example. Come meet Andrew, a clown and an acrobat. Okay. If it's Andrew, comma, a clown and an acrobat, then we know he is a clown and an acrobat. Right. That's an accurate statement. Or if it's come meet Andrew, comma, a clown, comma, and an acrobat, then you're meeting three people.
Yep.
I don't know whether I'm more offended to be called a clown or more pleased to be considered an acrobat.
I was trying to be even keeled to
So
you.
we gotta. I mean, all clowns are not the same. Bozo is just one type of clown. What the name of the clown in it?
Ronald McDonald.
But Ronald, he's a philanthropist.
Right.
Okay. What is the name of that?
Pennywise.
Pennywise. That's it. So I'm always here for Stephen King, also great writer.
There's also
I feel like your mic isn't on. I feel like you're going through all our mics.
Well, that would be funny.
There's also Shakes.
No, you're not. I can see it over here.
Test. That makes so much sense.
Andrew, what did you do? You messed it up?
I did not.
Well, I guess I know where I stand in this podcast. I will always be metaphorically coming through both of your mics.
So can we put on the other mic? Yeah, here. Use this one. See if that will.
Everybody,
You may have to move over there.
Yeah.
I'm sorry for our audience, everybody who's missed every
Why
gem
you
that's come out of my
kept sounding
mouth.
far away.
I think we can edit this out.
No, this is gold.
I'm going to do this. Hi, folks. Oh, I need one of our really nice chairs. Is there some music that could be playing right now, Andrew? The sounds of the acrobat. Is this any better?
Much better.
Much better.
Much better.
Oh, man.
Until you knock it over. So back to the clowns.
Welcome to the cool side of the table.
This is a lot better over here.
Yeah, isn't it nice?
Wow.
You got to look at Andrew. Other than that, it's good.
He's a good-looking guy, though.
Thank you.
Take your word on it.
I will take all your compliments.
That's right. Hey, as a guy without a lot of hair, I gotta appreciate it.
Right.
I'll never get that salt and pepper opportunity.
So I wanted to ask y'all, speaking
beer.
of clowns, have you ever seen the movie Shakes the Clown?
Never even heard of that.
Oh man, it's definitely a B film. It's dark humor. Shakes the Clown is like an alcoholic clown.
It's all
It's
good.
really
It's all
sad.
close to home right now.
Yeah, I know.
Drinks a sip of drinks.
Yes, we all.
Terrible
Yeah.
movie, but
Yeah, for those listening, we all just nervously sipped our drink.
Yes.
all right.
You can tell us more about that.
That's Shakes the Clown. Well, it's nice everybody to join us. Thank you.
Look it up.
Every weekend.
Look it up. You probably will not thank me.
So that's actually kind of an interesting thing to me. It's October 4th right now, and we're entering what is affectionately known as spooky season. I'm a fan. So something like I just read my first Stephen King novel. I've seen some Stephen King movie adaptations, but never read it. Just read The Shining. Wow, it's really good. So what are you guys doing? Do you celebrate spooky season? Is it how do you feel about it?
My wife loves Halloween.
I knew I liked
in all
her.
things. So we are about to this weekend, assuming it doesn't rain too much. We're about to put out an obnoxious amount of Halloween decorations. We've got like 10-foot tall
beautiful.
Jack the Pumpkin, and we got a Beetlejuice, arch with the snake and Beetlejuice and everything that's you have to walk through to get in our house. We got hanging witches everywhere. Inside, like she's got these, they're made out of paper, but they look like they hang from the ceiling. It's like knives and hatchets and stuff like that. And she puts them across the ceiling. Her dad came in one time and looked around. And she looked at her and goes, "You're a psychopath."
So thank you very much.
Yeah, she keeps a witch out, like a little stuffed witch with a pumpkin year round, just to wait for Halloween. We have a deal actually in my house that she would start playing Halloween music, and there's not a lot of Halloween music, but we listen to it.
It's probably worse than the whole Christmas genre in that way.
Oh,
Well,
yeah. I mean, because there's so much Christmas music, but there's
it's like July 4th music.
Yeah, exactly.
Well,
She would start on
Halloween
July
music
4th.
is I may be wrong, but sort of all the same. At least with Christmas music, you can have country and jazz and rock and pop and classical.
Right.
I think that's a failure of imagination in those putting it out. I don't think that's a limitation inherent to the category, but you're right.
So anyway, the compromise has been actually Labor Day, but this has just sort of been a crazy year.
So you
we
guys
haven't-
have the Thanksgiving, pre-Thanksgiving Christmas music thing, but about Halloween. Like
right?
that's
No,
impressive.
we're like, and we dress as
Well
a family as like a theme. So we were what were we? Last year we did a Star Wars theme. We were all characters from Star Wars.
What were you besides Jabba the Hutt?
Oh, thanks. I mean, come on, man.
Chewbacca.
No, we had our dog dressed up as Chewbacca with a whole thing around it.
I meant
Yeah.
with Jabba the Hutt as like this sort of powerful character who's established his own kingdom and runs his own economy.
No, I was Obi-Wan Kenobi.
The wisdom.
Yeah, had the robe and everything. Yeah.
The force is strong.
Knowing about your wife's love of Halloween and how y'all dress up, I've had it in my mind that y'all should do Popeye and olive oil and have one of the kids be Sweepy.
You're a sailor.
That's a good idea.
Oh, this is
I like
great.
that.
One of them could be a can of spinach. It's all levels of generality.
That's right.
That could be two Sweepies.
Yeah, that's true.
Sweet peas in a pod.
Sweet peas in a pod.
Podcast.
That's right.
Andrew,
We
how do you celebrate?
we enjoy Halloween on the day of Halloween. We are sort of, if the kids, my kids are 13 and 16 now, so they will probably pick a costume the day or two before and go trick or treating. Obviously, when they were younger, it was a little bit bigger deal. But no, we've never been a Halloween.
Do you
family.
do you decorate at all, or is it just like mums?
We'll put out a pumpkin and
Yeah.
maybe I think we have the skeleton dog to put by the door and a gravestone or something like that. But that's about it.
We've been now we obviously live in Georgia, but for a while we lived in Minnesota, which can be a lot of fun because it really gets very fall-y.
Yeah.
You really don't have to argue about when fall starts because the weather will tell you. So you can when you light a jack-o'-lantern and you're not sweating while you do it, so it's really nice. So since
You
being in
can
Minnesota-
cut the jack-o'-lantern more than 2 days before Halloween.
yeah, exactly, because
Yeah.
it will survive.
Right.
And I'm a huge fan of just the whole season. I like thrillers. I love like the Stephen King horror genre. So I've been more into it than my wife, but she's sort of come into it. So since we've been married, we have every year sort of buying one new decoration item. It's kind of our compromise because I would probably have, I keep driving by in Savannah, which is a great place to go look at decorations for Halloween. Like the big skeletons and stuff like that. Like, ooh, I really want it. Haven't gotten that yet. So this year we bought some kind of a tasteful amount of ghosts and gravestones to go out in the front yard and a light. So we're gonna get lighting.
Right.
Last year was a big spider web with a spider on it. The year before was one of those like candy dishes with the hands or things like that. So I think it's fun. I think in Savannah especially, a lot of people get into it.
Yeah.
You mentioned Stephen King a couple of times. You just read which book?
The Shining.
The Shining. Great book. You need to read Pet Sematary.
Okay, so I that's got to be next on my list. It's hard. The library, it's been like, I think it's like a 52-week hold right now. So I need to also it's on Kindle and That's the way I prefer to read right now because you can read one-handed, and I have a small baby. But I think I just need to break down and buy the book.
I think you're right. Speaking of that, this will be your first Halloween as a father with a child. So what are y'all going to do a family themed dress up? What are you doing?
I have been inclined to do that. I'm inspired by Paul's family to do that. We have tossed around we haven't settled anything just yet, but there are kind of 2 leading contenders right now. So we've got an 8-month-old, and one is the Ratatouille chef sort of combo, which is pretty common, but it's very cute. The baby is dressed as the mouse, and then we would dress as like a chef.
Linguini.
Linguini, and put her on my shoulder and stuff for the photo. The other one is a little bit of a nod to Minnesota and Norwegian culture. There's a big fairy gnome culture, so we've talked about getting one of these sort of not a kitschy gnome, Snow White dwarves. There's a lot of that out there, but there are these more sort of tasteful, old school fairy tale type gnome costumes out there. You get on like Etsy. So we're looking at those, and if we can do that, I think the world's our oyster because there are a lot of different iterations of gnomes.
Right, the gnome family. All right.
That's right. So you're either going to be gnome or I'm gnome.
Is that the joke for the end of the podcast?
It might as well be.
Oh, what else going on?
Well, I was looking for our clapper.
Oh, for the
Yeah.
I think it needs
So for those listening, Stephen got us like the old school Hollywood when it's like take 2 and you clap the thing, and
it's in this room somewhere.
It's in the room somewhere. It's a small room. We can't find it.
Well, there's a reason for that, and I'll blame the hurricane. I don't know exactly how.
Makes sense.
Yeah, it's got to be the hurricane.
Yeah.
Well, so another thing that happens this time of year is settlement season. So spooky season and settlement season, soup season. It's really the season of S's as far as I'm concerned.
That's good.
You're tuned into the podcast where justice meets Southern hospitality. Broadcasting directly from Savannah, Georgia, join your hosts, Paul, Stephen, and Andrew of Bowen Painter Trial Lawyers as they chat about the legal difficulties you might face in everyday life. From the ports of Savannah to the busy highways that stretch through the southeast, we're your go-to source for all things legal. Served up with a dose of Southern charm and commitment to justice for y'all.
That's a good point. So settlement season is a lot of times that insurance companies want to get claims off the books before the end of the year.
Right.
And so if you can get a case worked up and you can get it demanded and get a mediation or just get a demand letter out, you're typically the 4th quarter is the best quarter for settlement.
Right. And this isn't the only sort of area in the economy where this sort of thing happens. I mean, you get deal seasons. Everybody wants to get things closed by the end of the year. Everybody wants to get their tax donations in by the end of the year. I mean, it's not like a nefarious thing. It's
just the way it works.
Rhythm of a fiscal year. I think a lot of companies are on calendar fiscal years, and they want those books done. You want to go into the holidays with a couple, things knocked off the to-do list when things start back up. So it's a good time. You can't make the case settle, and you certainly don't want to rush to settlement for settlement's sake. But it's important to understand, I think, the atmosphere. It's different playing in the 4th quarter than it is start of the 1st.
Yeah.
Well,
speaking of that, dogs need to do something different than what they did last time.
Yeah, that's it was frustrating to me watching that game. We're talking about the Georgia-Alabama game that was last weekend. Is that they just did not come out ready to play.
No.
And that's not typical of Kirby Smart teams. It's not typical of Georgia the last few years. It wasn't like they completely it's not like they had a terrible game plan. It's not like they didn't do anything good in the game, but they came out flat and not ready to play.
Right.
And Alabama jumped on them. I mean, Alabama out-executed them.
Blood.
I don't understand. We didn't set an edge, it seemed like, the entire first half. And I don't understand how that came to be or why. And, I don't say my football IQ is good enough to look at it and figure it out, but we never had an edge.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's coming off a performance at Kentucky.
That's
and
right.
Yeah.
I think Kentucky's shown themselves to be a pretty good team, but still coming off an underwhelming performance at Kentucky within a bye week. You would have hoped that Georgia would come out and have their crap together and be ready to play, and they just weren't.
Yeah.
No. I mean, the second half, they did an amazing job to come back to get ahead. It's remarkable to come back against that Alabama team down as far as we were. But, again,
That's
just couldn't hold it.
they didn't win, but then that's also you don't want that to be. That's not how we want to set up our team. Is that they'll come back in the second half. Man, we had some of that last year, and
Sure.
it panned out, but we still, it's 2 weeks in a row like that. It's just tough to see.
Well, we should whip up on Auburn tomorrow for homecoming, and then get Mississippi State. But then we go to Texas, and that's going to be interesting. And we could use that victory. Now, I think we could still lose to Texas and wind up in the playoffs. But it's like you said, it's not ideal to do that. I didn't think we'd get through this year without dropping a game, though. It's just too hard of a schedule, and all these top 10 programs we're playing away, except for I guess Tennessee.
I would not have been shocked if you told me preseason that we would lose on the road to Alabama by one score.
You just thought it would have been tight the whole game.
Well, yeah. Well, it's just disappointing. If it had been a hard-fought game and both teams executed their butts off, and that's how the game came out, you feel better about it, as opposed to Georgia came out, again, not ready to play and let Alabama get out to a huge lead. That leaves a different taste in your mouth than just a really well-played, hard-fought game.
I didn't play football in school, but I played some sports, and there's a big psychology element to that. Do you guys think that had an impact going in the first half? Like what we're talking about, what we observed as fans of coming off that tough win at Kentucky, then to come in and have a half start like it did with Alabama. Do you guys feel like that might have impacted the locker room and then showed up on the field?
In the second half?
Well, just in the game. I mean, all of a sudden we don't have an edge. We can't find an edge. That's become sort of a self-reinforcing thing in that first half, and they need the half to kind of get it back together. And they showed up the second half, but
yeah, I mean, they just never could get the momentum going, and it was just on their heels from the very beginning. Yeah, I think that does have something to do with it. And then, a bad interception that led to a short field. It just doesn't take much with a good team to lose momentum. But the fact that they could turn around and have the momentum go in the second half, because frankly, I the way that the game was going, I don't think anybody watching it would have thought that Georgia had the ability to come back.
Not with that.
Not saying not the ability, but that night had it in them to come back.
You watch that game in the first half, and you're like, "This is not Georgia's night."
No.
Turn it off.
It reminded me of the 2008, blackout game.
Boy, for a second, it reminded me of 28-3, the Falcons and Patriots back in 27.
Right.
And that was not the association I wanted, because that was when I quit following professional football. Fortunately, I moved to Minnesota and got to watch the Vikings lose and become a fan of that.
Sure.
Although jokes on us now that the Falcons have Kirk Cousins as their quarterback.
Had a 506-yard game last night.
Hey,
Jeez.
That man, he's decent at football, but what he's real good at is contract negotiation. He knows it doesn't really matter because he's gonna walk away with some money. Are we? Sorry, this is a good sports podcast. Are we branching out?
I like it. Yeah,
it's good.
We think we
multi-dimensional.
More interesting in the sports talk than it is. Of course, you got the Braves. That's a tough loss, and But after this year, with all those injuries, the fact they've made it to the postseason at all is remarkable.
Well, it's the most snake bit baseball team I think I've ever seen. Starting with the very first game of the season, you got Spencer Strider coming off a all-time great year where there
were some sparks.
Led the league in strikeouts and very first game he gets injured.
Yeah,
early in the game, and it was just downhill from there.
No. And then when Acuna was gone, it was like,
it was rough.
It just continued. Albies missed a third of the season.
Yeah.
Acuna missed 2/3 of the season or more. Riley missed a third of the season.
These are names that matter.
Yeah.
To this team.
As loaded as the team is, top to bottom, you can't lose your top players.
Right.
Well, almost all of them.
Just think about it like this: the 2, maybe 3, but I know that 2 of the infielders that they brought in to replace their injured players were players that were released by their teams during the season because they weren't performing well.
Wow.
Right.
Now, to the Braves' credit, they obviously saw something in those players and brought them in, and they were much different players when they started playing for the Braves. But still, that's a lot different lineup than Acuna and Albies and Riley. And then you had Matt Olson's bat kind of disappeared for a lot of the year, which was not expected. But then it just continued. You finally you make the postseason, which was a great achievement for that
Right.
team, given everything that happened. And Chris Sale, your ace at the time, is not on the roster for the first game, nor is Schwellenbach, who's
Yeah.
a rookie that came in and just pitched great. The hits just kept on coming, and then
Max
you
Fried gets hit on with a
you get-
pitch.
right, you get-
literally.
you get to the second game, and I think it was the second inning, and Max Fried takes a line drive, 106 miles an hour off the bat of Tatis right in the hip,
right in the tip. Yeah.
and he can't. He goes out there for another batter or so, but he can't continue.
Well, he gives up 5 runs from there because he can't. He's just
Right.
doesn't take much to be off at that level, obviously.
So this is one you close the book on that season, you get everybody healthy, and come back next year ready to spit fire.
Use this time to your advantage.
Yeah.
Going back to Georgia for a second, you think it's coincidence that Carson Beck had a 3-interception game the week after he wound up on a personal injury billboards for a big advertiser?
I don't think.
Just saying.
I mean, karma. I don't know what you call it, but I don't think it's coincidence. Irony. I might call it irony. It's an odd choice to me to begin with. There's a tagline that we all saw, but no. And this is a little bit of the NIL problem, I think, too. And maybe his head just wasn't in the game. He belonged on the field, not on the billboard.
Well, it's a different era in college athletics with NIL. Some of the kids will be able to handle it, and I'm not saying that Carson Beck had a problem handling the
he'll come
NIL
back
money and all
be
that.
fine.
But there are some kids who aren't going to be able to handle it. They're going to be more concerned with their deal than they are with getting their head right and ready to play.
I mean, it's a tough thing to do at any age, but come in at 18, 19, 20 years old and, I'm driving a Lamborghini and have a jet and, and you still got to be part of, you still go to class and be part of a
I'm not
college
sure they're
football.
going to class. We'll see.
Well, they are now, they still got to do it now, but there's talk. I mean, I've heard it predicted in 5 years from now, like college football's players, they're associated with the college is just going to be playing football.
Yeah.
Like they're not going to be students anymore.
Well,
which I really hate that idea.
I can tell you that it is already this new era we're in college football, and I understand, obviously, as a lawyer, legally, why some of the issues have evolved the way they have with name, image, and likeness, and with the transfer rules. But it has diminished the game for me. It is not.
Yeah.
I don't have the passion for it. I still like it. I still want Georgia to win. I'm going to watch the game and root for them, but I don't feel the passion that I once had.
Well, that was one of the big things that really set it apart from the professional program. Other than there was some age and some time and grade, so to speak, for these guys, but it really was the fact that they weren't getting compensated at these levels. Which, hey, we all know money changes the game. Yeah,
I'm not to the point where I don't enjoy it as much now, but it's gotta balance out soon, or it's just going to be the AAA to the NFL, which it always kind of was, but like I don't know, it's not going to make as much sense. And frankly, I blame the NCAA for it all.
Absolutely.
Because the NCAA, I mean, this has been coming for 20 years, if not more. When all this money's going to college football, and you get the TV contracts and coaches making $10 million a year, and the university's getting as much money as they're getting.
The conference is rolling in it.
Absolutely, yeah. They got these ESPN deals and all this stuff. Yet the players aren't getting anything, and the NCAA doubles down on the 1950s version of what a college athlete should be.
Right.
If they had made some reasonable concessions and let the players get compensated under still a guideline, it could have been walked out to find a balance.
Yeah.
And you wouldn't wind up with, the Supreme Court basically saying you can't do this.
Right.
Right. You and I have talked about this before. The leadership from the NCAA was
Oh, it's abysmal.
they were stubborn and they weren't leaders in this.
Right.
Right.
I don't have all the details of a plan, but if they had instituted some plan where they would have said, okay, players, you can be compensated for your name, image, and likeness. You can do commercial deals to be paid to sponsor products, businesses, whatever. But here's some parameters. One, it can't be a booster-related business.
Yeah.
Two, it has to be a commercially reasonable deal. And now, so there's a lot of interpretation that can take place there. But are you telling me with the billions of dollars that college football is creating. They couldn't set up some sort of a board or several of them for different regions of the country to review these deals.
Sort of.
Right, to review these deals and say, okay, given this player's relative prominence and performance, this is a commercially reasonable sponsorship deal.
Right.
Because that exists in the industry. For celebrities, there are people who will tell you exactly how much that celebrity is worth in terms of advertising.
We've gotten really good at putting numbers on things.
Right. So it could have been done. There would always been around the edges room for debate and so forth, but they at least would have had some control over it and wouldn't have this wild west that we have now.
Yeah,
a little bit lighter hearted. So we've talked about the dogs. We talked about NFL. What are some of y'all's favorite sort of lesser grade sports out there? Now I'll throw out. I mean, MLS is not really there for a while. I follow the Minnesota United, which the Loons. Around here, we've got the Savannah Clovers. I mean, what are some of your favorite sort of things at least that exist, or maybe you follow out there that aren't sort of these more headliner sports?
Well, I and maybe it's just me because I am playing a lot of tennis these days, but I feel like when I was growing up, tennis was a much bigger sport in the national conscience.
Okay.
From Jimmy Connors, I remember as being a kid, Jimmy Connors was a great American tennis player,
right.
And then it came into John McEnroe, Andre Agassi, Pete Sampras, Michael Chang.
Some of these names,
right? And tennis was appointment TV, for the big tennis tournament, and I feel like that went away for a while because American tennis just wasn't very good.
Yeah.
And we're still playing catch up, but we starting to have some players, especially on the women's side. I mean, we've had that for a while.
The
that are making it a much more exciting sport to watch. The last 3 or 4 years, I've been watching a lot more tennis. We have some really good young American guys out there coming through the ranks.
This is, it's all anecdotal, but I have friends now on social media feeds. They are going to the U.S. Open like it's an NFL event or a big concert or something like. They're posting pictures of them at it, and so I think you're right. I think it's coming back. So. Tennis and obviously pickleball's having its sort of thing at the moment, although that's popular with the other side of the crowd.
I'm not sure. Pickleball, everybody enjoys playing it so much. I'm curious to see if it'll be a spectator sport.
I've seen it on TV and have found it hard to watch.
Although breakdancing did make it to the Olympics, so I'm not.
Here's
to
you, Ray Gun.
Being your best self without a doubt. Still,
I'll tell you something that's been on. I guess with all the different streaming services, you get random sports channels. I'm determined to figure out how to watch cricket.
I'm with you on this actually.
Yeah,
you got to spend a couple days. I mean, these cricket matches will last 2 days.
Well, apparently there are different types, but it looks fascinating to me. It looks like once I've come to understand it, I would enjoy it. Yeah. So I'm determined to learn it.
Oh, that's impressive if you do. I spent a day watching it in Australia when I was in the Navy, saying I'm going to pick this game up. And never figured it out. Of course,
let's face it, you were in Australia in the Navy.
I was saying, I bet there were some other things you were picking up that were distracting you from the main objective.
So I don't understand cricket. I'll just leave it at that.
Causation's still in question on that. Yeah. Whether it's cricket or...
But somebody was trying to explain it to me when I was sitting there, and I was like, I just don't get it. Because something else would happen. There's so many edifications of things that can happen, it seemed like. But I can just understand Andrew. If anybody can figure out how to watch cricket as an American, it's you.
That's a fact. The one that is sort of related to that, and I think for Americans, actually, we took some interest, is rugby. And if you drive down here in Forsyth Park for different times, or Daffin Park, you'll see the rugby set up out there. And I like the purity of rugby, no or much more limited equipment out on the field. It's just sort of guys and girls out on the field rolling
and a ball.
Yeah. And the ball, like when it stops, the thing doesn't stop. Like the momentum doesn't stop. And there's all these things about whether it's safer because everybody's not lining up to hit each other harder again. I don't know exactly how all that washes out in the end, but it is fun to watch. It's kind of like soccer and football together.
Yeah.
And I enjoy watching soccer.
I'm not sure it's safer. I mean, I think you get less concussions with the head on a head.
Yeah, that's probably true.
But I think other injuries are pretty prevalent.
That's a good point. Yeah. It depends on how you
a lot of stitches.
A lot of stitches. I think a lot of broken joints type of thing.
Yeah, strained stitches. So.
They just, rub some dirt on it, get back in there. Have a Guinness.
Keep moving. Yeah, have a Guinness, obviously. That's how you end it.
All right, any legal things we're going to talk about today?
I don't know that there's much to report on at this time. I mean, we talked a little bit about settlement season. I think that was this episode.
Well, I mean, with the NIL, you got that guy who was the quarterback. He's at Georgia now, but he's suing Florida because of the promises that were made for his NIL deal and that didn't come through.
Right.
So fraudulent inducement.
But then again, neither did he. He's not there, right?
Well, I think that was a preemptory breach.
Understood. All right.
So.
All right. So why don't cannibals cook instant noodles?
Why?
They prefer raw men. Cannibals.
Sigh.
Yeah,
I don't think that was the right button.
No, you
I don't think that was the right button.
All right.
Thanks for listening to Justice for Y'all, hosted by the attorneys here at Bowen Painter Trial Lawyers in Savannah, Georgia. If today's episode resonated with you or if you find yourself needing legal guidance, remember, we're just a call away. You don't have to work through the difficulties of your situation alone. Visit our website at bowenpainter.com, that's BOWENPAINTER.com, or give us a call at 912-335-1909. We're here to serve you with the dedication and warmth only true Southern hospitality can offer. Thanks for tuning in, and don't forget to subscribe to our podcast on your favorite platform so you don't miss an episode. And tell your friends and family about us if they're ever in need of some legal insight. Take care, and remember that at Bowen Painter Trial Lawyers, we're committed to justice for y'all.